What up, everybody? YouTube Live. Good morning. Good morning. Right now it's Tuesday, August. What is it? August 13th, 2019. Um, so before I head on and film some more of my reviews for you, I want to give you my thoughts about this. I want to ask you of your thoughts about this as well. This is the latest development in the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood controversy. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, just a heads up. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Okay. There'll be spoilers here. So, for those of you who've seen it, you would know what I'm talking about. So, in the movie, Brad Pitt plays the character um, Cliff Booth, who is the stuntman for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Rick Dalton. In one of the scenes, Brad Pitt's character, Cliff Booth, is hanging about on the set of The Green Hornet, I believe. And obviously, one of the stars of the show is Bruce Lee as Kato. And Bruce Lee in this scene, played by Mike Moe, who I think is fantastic. He fits the profile for Bruce Lee. He looks just the part. Um, he brags about how he can fight or he can defeat Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, as you know, is one of the greatest of all time. And Bruce Lee, in my opinion, is also one of the greatest of all time in his field, martial art. So Bruce Lee is like mocking. He's like, "Yeah, I'm Muhammad Ali, whatever. I could take him out. I can knock him out. I can take him down. No problem. Easy peasy." Something along that line. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And Cliff Booth, smirks, smiles, like, and then Bruce Lee's like, "What's so funny?" And then I was laughing in that moment because Bruce Lee was pulling a Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. What's so funny, huh? We think I'm funny? Do I look like? Do I have a clown face to you? Do I think? Do I amuse you? Huh? Am I here to amuse you? Flashes of Joe Pesci from Goodfellas just like poof, came rushing in. Um, so it eventually led to them trying to prove each other to themselves. Like, okay, you know what? If you could take me down in 3 moves or whatever, I forgot. I only watched the movie once, so they had this sort of semi fight. I think no punches to the face was the rule, and Cliff Booth won. But the thing is, the fight was interrupted by um, the director of the set or the episode, played by I forgot her. I think her name is Zoe Bell. I gotta double check, but she's been in many Quentin Tarantino movies before too, and she's a stuntman as well slash actress. But anyway, um, so it got interrupted. But at one point before he got interrupted, Cliff Booth threw Bruce Lee onto like a car, and the car got dented. It was just funny, man. It was funny. Now, a lot of I'm Asian. I get it. A lot of people uh, worship Bruce Lee, especially us Asians. As the guy who represented us in a time in Hollywood when we Asians were underrepresented or not even represented at all. So Bruce Lee was like a trailblazer. So for a portrayal such as that, a depiction of Bruce Lee being knocked around or knocked out by a white man, Cliff Booth, a lot of people take that as an insult, and I totally understand. I totally understand their argument is valid, because they really revere Bruce Lee as this, you know, Maharaja. So okay, which leads us to this latest comment. Now, after all that controversy and backlash, and many of you probably think like, there's no way Cliff Booth could have beaten Bruce Lee. Yeah, right, you're right. You probably watched that scene. It's like, yeah, whatever, Quentin, in your wildest dreams. Like, um, another anger at the scene or the movie itself is not about whether or not Cliff Booth could beat Bruce Lee, but it's the depiction of Bruce Lee mocking or being arrogant regarding him being able to defeat Muhammad Ali. A lot of people are like, whoa, that's a bridge way too far there, my friend. Bruce Lee was never that. He would never disrespect Muhammad Ali like that. That's the other anger, right? The first one was about, hey, Cliff Booth beating up Bruce Lee. Yeah, right. um So Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee, let me read you the exact quote here. She took umbrage about that. She was upset. She is one of those who like, that's not a good depiction of my father. And she said, and I quote, she told Variety here, he was never, in my opinion, cocky. Maybe he was cocky in as far as martial arts because he was very sure of himself. He was worlds ahead of everyone else. But on a set, he was not going to show off. Bruce Lee would never have said anything derogatory about Muhammad Ali because he worshiped the ground that Muhammad Ali walked on. My dad, Bruce, was continuously marginalized and treated like kind of a nuisance of a human being by white Hollywood, which is how he's treated in the film by Quentin Tarantino. And then Quentin Tarantino responded, and he responded not just to Shannon Lee, but to all the backlash out there, and especially regarding whether or not Bruce Lee was ever cocky on the set. And Quentin says this, and I'm quoting also Variety. Bruce Lee was kind of an arrogant guy. The way he was talking, I did not just make a lot of that up. I heard him say things like that to that effect. If people are saying, well, he never said he could beat up Muhammad Ali. Well, yeah, he did. Not only did he say that, but his wife, Linda Lee, said that in her first biography that I ever read. She absolutely said that. Um, so yeah. So I'm gonna give you my thoughts, and I'm gonna throw it to the ball to your court, and you could and I'll read your chat and also your comments later on if you leave the comments after the video ends. Um, Here's the thing with the legacy of people who have or celebrities who have died. There'll be many stories about them, different shades, different and I'm not just talking about celebrities, people also regular folks, um, because people surrounding that person, family members, peers, or autobiographers or journalists, each of them would have different experiences of that person. Each of them would have different, like, for example, you'll know a guy is like, yeah, my neighbor's nice, dude. He always says hi to me. He invites me to his house, and then some guy down the road, down the block, will be like, oh, are we talking about the same neighbor? Man, that guy's an asshole to me. I tried to say hi to him the other day. He kind of smirked, like. So everybody's got different experiences about a person, the same person, and so here's my example. For example, when when Quentin Tarantino says, "Well, I read that he was cocky on the set from the biography written by Bruce Lee's wife." There you go. So that's the account, the experience of Bruce Lee according to his wife. Maybe if you ask the people on the set that I've worked with Bruce Lee, maybe they have never seen, Bruce Lee ever being cocky about Muhammad Ali. Uh, Now, if you say, "Hey, Rama, Bruce Lee was a bit arrogant in his movies," that's also another perspective, right? You've seen Bruce Lee's movies. I grew up watching Bruce Lee's movies. There were instances, scenes in many of his movies where he's a bit cocky. He's a bit, like Shannon Lee says, sure of himself, sure about beating the other guy, sure about, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll beat you. I'll kick you down. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and so maybe that's the only perception of Bruce Lee that we get as the audience. We see him on the screen. We see him as kind of like this cocky character. Then we immediately assume that that's how Bruce Lee was in real life as well, because he was cocky on the big screen. It's like, yeah. But then again, we never stop to think maybe was just a performance. It was just a character that he created. And once the director yells cut, and everything was wrapped up, that he became a humble man again. Who knows? Again, so that's our perspective of Bruce Lee, versus the perspective of Bruce Lee from the people that worked with him on the set, versus perspective of Bruce Lee from his wife, Linda Lee. And then there's Shannon Lee's perspective of Bruce Lee. Now, Shannon Lee, I don't mean this as an insult, okay? I respect Shannon Lee. I respect the late, great Brandon Lee as well. I went to the gravesite of both Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee when I visited Washington, Seattle, not Washington. Yeah, I think Seattle. Yeah, Seattle, Washington State. That's what I meant, not Washington D.C. Seattle, Washington. I visited their gravesite after I visited the Microsoft headquarters. So I paid my respects to Brandon Lee and Bruce Lee. Um, so I mean this as no insult whatsoever. But Shannon Lee, she was, if I'm not mistaken, she was about 4 years old when her dad died. When her dad died, she was only about 4 years old. Bruce Lee died at the age of 32. Man, holy crap! I'm 36. So just imagine, that just blew my mind. It's like, wow, Bruce Lee died, y- y- at a younger age than me. It's just insane. So uh, Shannon Lee, whatever recollection that she had of her father was just of that age range, and I'm sure it was wonderful memories that she had with her father, and so she wanted to have that image be like that forever. Like, so when somebody comes in with another perspective of Bruce Lee that's different from hers, she'll be defensive, and that will be understandable. You see where I'm getting at? If somebody says something to you about your dad, and you're like, oh, whoa, 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 hold your brakes there. My dad would never say things like that. You would defend your family. Of course, it's understandable. Um, so that's also another side, another perspective of Bruce Lee from his daughter that was so young when her dad died. So, but it is true what she said though about how Bruce Lee was marginalized in white Hollywood. Unfortunately, back then, if you think that Hollywood is still racist today, imagine how it was back then, man. Especially towards Asian actors, you barely see. Like I said, that's why we Asians we regard Bruce Lee as some kind of a god, because he was the trailblazers. He represented us on the screen. Remember, Bruce Lee came up with the concept for what eventually became the Kung Fu series. There was this controversy about the studios, like, nah, we're not gonna have Bruce Lee star in it, and so they eventually hired David Carradine. Um, so so there was prejudice and really biased against Bruce Lee in that period by Hollywood. So that part of Shannon Lee's statement is true. Unfortunately, that's how it was back then. Um, it I don't know if that when she said that. Well, because of that, that is also how Bruce Lee's image is treated by Quentin Tarantino. Now, I don't know if Quentin Tarantino purposely um, or intentionally wants to make his depiction of Bruce Lee to reflect how Bruce Lee was treated, the image of Bruce Lee was treated in his era. I don't know. I don't know what's Quentin Tarantino's heart. I doubt that's his intention. Um, and then that leads me to my last point. My last point, guys. If you've seen the movie, you would know that it is, like my friend Robert says, an alternate version, an alternate reality of what happened with the massacre of Sharon Tate. You know how Sharon Tate got murdered by the Manson gang. The ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is like an alternate reality where Cliff Booth and Leonardo DiCaprio, Rick Dalton were the ones. They were the ones who killed or murdered the Manson gang. The Manson gang entered the wrong house, and they're like, "Well, we're gonna fuck you up." um, just like in Inglorious Bastards, it's an alternate reality where in Inglorious Bastards, the heroes kill and literally burn Hitler and the guys. So the Hitler didn't die, suicide like in history. But no, the Inglorious Bastards guys, they got to Hitler. So it's Quentin Tarantino's version of events of the history. So um in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in that version, Cliff Booth could beat up could beat up Bruce Lee. In Quentin Tarantino's version of history, Bruce Lee was cocky and says things like that about Muhammad Ali. So which leads me to my last quote here from I'm sorry, not my last quote, but Quentin's final quote. Um, he said, "Could Cliff Booth beat up Bruce Lee? Well, Brad Pitt would never be able to beat up Bruce Lee, but Cliff maybe could. If you ask me the question, who would win in a fight, Bruce Lee or Dracula? It's the same question. It's a fictional character. I say Cliff can beat Bruce Lee up. He's a fictional character, so he could beat Bruce Lee up. The reality of the situation is this: Cliff is a Green Beret. He has killed many men in World War II in hand-to-hand combat. What Bruce Lee is talking about in the whole thing is that he admires warriors, he admires combat, and boxing is a closer approximation to combat as a sport. Cliff is not part of that sport that is like combat. He is a warrior, he is a combat person. So, again, in this alternate version of our world, of that era, Cliff Booth, who was a Green Beret, could beat up Bruce Lee. So, um, it's not a historically accurate film, guys. It's a fictional version of history, I guess you could say. It's Quentin Tarantino's rendition of what happened with regards to Sharon Tate and with regards to the depiction of Bruce Lee. Um, so I I I I don't think I would say like, oh, I'm siding with the Backlash, or I'm siding with Sharon Tate, or I'm siding with Quentin Tarantino. No, I think Quentin Tarantino has, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, has the creative freedom to you know um, to tell the story however he sees fit. And everybody else, if they have their own image or picture of Bruce Lee, they're also entitled to him, to that perspective. So yeah, I think there are better big not better I'm sorry, there are bigger things in life that we could be more outraged about, and so this is very minuscule compared to those. So yeah, what do you think? What did you think? Are you part of the people who are so insulted by the depiction of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's Bruce Lee that you hated the film because of that? You're like, no way, no way, Bruce Lee couldn't. There's no way Bruce Lee could be thrown into a car like that, man. How dare the white people? Or are you part of the people who like, you know what? It's Quentin's movie, man. That's how he does his movies. And it doesn't ruin whatever Quentin Tarantino did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It doesn't tarnish my image of Bruce Lee. I will still adore him. It doesn't, it's not like, oh, if they reboot Jurassic Park, that they're gonna, oh my god, they ruined my childhood. No, my childhood is fine. My childhood is in the past, and my childhood was happy. My image of Bruce Lee will still be fine. I still watch his movies. That's the only view of Bruce Lee that I have. I never knew him as a person, obviously, and so Once Upon a Time in Hollywood doesn't affect that, doesn't negatively affect that specifically. So, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below. Wow. Unbelievable montages here. Says, I'm 50-50 on it. He was not in the movie enough, so his depiction didn't really ruin the movie. The scene wasn't bad, but his depiction was a bit disrespectful. Okay, that's your opinion. Bruce knocked Cliff down first, and then Cliff knocked him down afterwards. Then they get interrupted. So it's a okay. So in your opinion, it's a draw. It's a tie. Nobody won. There's no like Cliff Booth beating Bruce Lee up whatsoever. It's a draw. I can see that. I can see that. So, and here's another thing too. When the announcement about Quentin Tarantino's movie came out, it hit the web, and that the announcement says, "Oh, his movie is gonna delve a little bit into the Manson murders of Sharon Tate." I remember people were outraged about that too. Uh, some people that I know close to, as my fellow press and my fellow critics members, like they were like, "Oh, can we just leave Sharon Tate alone? How many times does she have to be depicted like that? It's a brutal murder. Like, Hollywood always gets it wrong in their depiction of what happened that night. Can we just please stop ruining Sharon Tate's legacy? So even then, that's another outrage too. But it goes along with people who are outraged about the depiction of Bruce Lee by the film. So if we get angry about little details about how movie depicts this or movie depicts that, then we're not gonna be a bunch of happy audiences. We're gonna be grumpy moviegoers every single time because we're gonna be like, oh no, he would never do that. Oh, she would never do that. Oh my god. It's like we see science fiction movie and I'm like, no, that's physics would never allow that. That defies gravity. No, there's no way. that we would not have fun as moviegoers, man. So this is one of those cases where I say, let him go, let him go. There are bigger things to be outraged about on the world right now. So um, yeah, this is the little unbelievable montages. I honestly think he could have left out the Mansons out of the movie. The last 3 minutes of the movie felt like a completely different film. Well, I disagree with that. I disagree with that because it speaks to Cliff Booth's loyalty to Rick Dalton. His friendship. You know, if there was no scene of them um, beating up on the um, Rick Dalton saying to Cliff Booth, "You're a good friend," and Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth says like, "I try." I try. You got to have that leading up to that moment. You got to have something to that. So I disagree, but I respect your opinion. Okay, so I think my internet connection is a bit off right now. I apologize. So I got to get going. Um, Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in. You guys subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Let's rock this.